Hey, welcome to Minor Details. I'm Nick.
And I'm James.
And we are two industrial designers in the big city.
Sweating the small stuff.
Woo.
Oh, yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, we did a little special bottle opener because James brought his bottle opener this week.
I did.
And also, congrats. You launched eDoor.
Thank you very much.
If you missed last episode, James launched his small design brand. Check that out. It's really amazing. But I wanted to ask you, how did it go?
It's going well.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's a little bit higher price point. We got a 3D printed bottle opener here.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's going well so far, and I'm just super invigorated by the whole experience.
Really? Yeah, you like it?
I really like it a lot. And I just like all the little pieces, like getting the bags.
Oh, you get a little like nice packaging.
Getting the stamp, getting the custom stamp.
Right.
Getting all the bits and bobs together. I've got this thing that cuts perfect circles out of paper. So I've been stamping and then cutting out circles and writing like thank you notes.
Oh, that's nice. You get handwritten thank you notes?
Yeah.
I did not give people handwritten thank you notes on my bottle opener.
You know, it's 20 piece limited edition.
That's true.
And then I also just got myself a I was just telling you about it.
Label printer.
Yeah, label printer
for shipping,
and it's just like changed my life.
I gotta say, I printed out all my labels on my just HP crappy printer.
Really?
And then cut out all the paper. Like, it was just paper.
Yeah.
Cut it out and then had to tape it down with it was a disaster.
It
wasn't a disaster. It was just very time consuming.
I went over to Amazon.
Amazon.
And I was looking at that Amazon choice. Let's see. I think these are like normal. Shipping label maker.
Yeah, I mean, it can really save you time if you're shipping a lot of things.
This guy.
Oh, is that your label maker?
This is my label maker, the Rollo label printer. And I really like it. It's got a very like retro.
It's very boxy
design.
That's cool.
And the labels just feed in through the back, and I think it's supposed to print like is it like 10x faster than other printers or something like that? Oh, it just shoots them out super quick. It's very, very fast, and the setup was super easy. There was like a ton of videos, like it was a step-by-step video process of like how to set up your printer. Yeah, and it was great. I don't think they're like a huge company. We are not sponsored by them. Again, we don't have sponsorships. That's not a thing yet on Minor Details. So this is just me talking about something. There's
a little bit of bitterness in there.
This is just me talking about something that I bought that I enjoy using. So yeah, shout out to Rollo.
The real question though is, James, what's the next product you're working on? Are you working on one?
Yeah, I am. I am working on. I'm actually working on another bottle opener. So when I posted about the bottle opener, I like in some of my initial posts, I posted a thing that was like a bunch of the iteration.
Oh, right.
And so I'm actually making like the key style one.
Right, like kind of the bar blade type of bottle opener.
And so that one, the sample is coming soon. And I was actually... So I was thinking about this, and I was talking to Mao GV the other day. Mm-hmm. I had a video chat with him, and sort of came upon this idea with eDoor that one of the things that I really want to do with the brand is like continually improve upon the design.
Because it's 3D printed?
Because it's 3D printed.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, the ultimate future for me, for product designers in general, I think, is being able to edit products like UX UI designers.
Exactly. Because your apps and everything always update, but never your products.
Right.
You have to like buy a new product.
So like one of the things that I've been thinking about for this bottle opener, the Wayne bottle opener, is putting a hole up here so that the leather can come in and around this and out of it.
Ooh.
But if you buy it without the necklace, you can also put it on the stand like that.
Ooh, you're getting fancy, James.
Yeah. So just little things like that.
That's kind of fun.
I think that's what I want the brand to be about, is just like,
I like that.
This constant iteration.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah.
Also, you launched your most recent episode of Brase Makes.
Yes, dropped a new episode of Brase Makes. We covered papercraft in this episode.
I watched this episode, and if you guys aren't familiar with Brase Makes, it's a prototyping YouTube video channel thing.
Yeah,
that Andrew Brace is doing. It's really cool. You guys talked about making just cardboard cutouts at the first episode. Second episode was using just kind of what you had on hand, cardboard, bottles, trash, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
This episode was all about the papercraft origami style of prototyping.
Yeah, and came to the realization that at the scale that we were using, probably not the most appropriate.
Right. It was kind of hard to fold the tiny pieces of paper to make a dome. I mean, the dome was only 3 inches in diameter?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the reasons that I felt so strongly that we should do an approach like that is because of how many small design studios you see using that method, like Jamie Wolfall and Invisibility.
Yeah.
And people seem to be really curious about it. But, I mean, Andrew learned the hard way. And then because he was like, I want to try this out before we record it.
Right.
And it was 2.5 hours for him to do the dome and the back propeller arm.
Yeah, I think part of it was definitely the fact that it was a small object. I think also one thing that I was thinking about when I was watching this video is that you guys kind of approached it as through the idea that you were just going to do the entire helicopter out of paper.
Yeah.
In which, and where I've seen this technique used better is if you do the parts of the object that need the paper, and then, for example, the tail of the helicopter is flat, so that would have been much easier to just cut out cardboard.
Right.
And so you would combine different elements of prototyping.
Yeah.
To get, because the value of this prototype over the previous cardboard prototype was that this prototype, it was actually the correct proportions.
Right.
Because you plugged in the paper folding software into your CAD.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, one of the things, so yes, I agree with that. I think that there are, to do pure papercraft is not necessarily the best way, but
but when appropriate.
But yeah, when appropriate. But there were definitely I think in watching the videos, you could definitely get a sense of how to do mixed media.
Right.
Because we took this one as far as we could go, because otherwise we would have, if we had built out this whole thing,
you would have had to quit your job.
Yeah, basically. But Andrew also discovered through Slicer, the program, the other thing that we were really concerned with this whole first part of the series is using things that were free and easily accessible.
Right.
So I think Slicer is a free program, and Andrew was able to get another type of configuration out of Slicer. He used it for the papercraft, but then he figured out this sort of exoskeleton method.
Right, with cardboard, or just slotting them together.
Yeah, not exoskeleton.
Sandwiching?
Almost like boat making, slotting.
Right.
However you would describe that.
Right.
And I thought that was really interesting, because I could see, after doing that, putting paper over that to make it this solid form.
Right.
And yeah, so it's super, it's been super interesting to do these videos with Andrew, and the series is going to continue and just get more and more, the fidelity is going to get better.
Right.
We're also going to be figuring out parts of the construction that I haven't figured out yet.
How far are you going to go? Are you going to get it manufactured? Samples from a factory?
We'll see.
All right. That'd be cool, man.
That would be sweet.
Everyone's been wanting these little helicopter toys for however long you've been doing it.
I feel like I'm just a big old tease. But yeah, that's pretty much all for me. What about you, Nick?
Oh yeah. I got carried away with all our updates. I went to Texas. That was a cool thing I did. I went to visit my friend.
Back home?
I wouldn't say it was home.
Home on the range?
I lived there for a bit.
Yeah.
I hadn't been back to Texas since I moved to New York, so it's almost been 2 years.
Yeah.
I went back to my friend Josiah and Marina's wedding. And yeah, it was fun. I think it's funny to go back and just see the contrast between Texas and New York.
Yeah.
Because I've completely forgotten about Texas, like the nuances of it. Because first of all, everyone drives there.
Right.
And I don't have a car anymore. So like I kind of Ubered around a bit, and then I like was walking around. And also Texas is just huge.
Yeah.
So you think like something's 3 blocks away. Well, that's like 30 minutes away.
3 cattle drives away.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, do you think, was there anything that not to say that the things you've noticed they're not like exactly positive, but are there things, you were posting things on Instagram while you were there, and I was like, whoa, that's in Texas? Like,
Yeah. Well, so I lived in Fort Worth, Texas, and the one thing that I really like is the Fort Worth Water Gardens, which is a very beautiful, like very modern kind of architectural park in the city, and it has these really crazy fountains. It has like 3 fountains, and like, it's kind of like steps, like stair steps of fountains.
that's wild.
It's interesting. Check it out if you have a chance. You know, you guys can Google it, or if you're watching the video, you can see it. But
yeah.
So I mean, that's always a fun place to visit when I'm in Fort Worth. So Josiah is an industrial designer. He was an industrial designer at PetMate when I was there, and I still is. And so there's a few other industrial designers at the wedding. So I got to meet up with some designers, and one of them was a fan of the podcast. So
excellent.
Shout out to you guys.
Shout outs.
So yeah, I don't know. It's fun to visit.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's all I got. Also the Uber drivers talk to you in Texas. The Uber drivers don't talk to you in New York.
Yeah, you know.
Also, you have to wave at people when you walk down the street. You don't wave at people in New York either. You know, I'm walking around in the neighborhood. Oh, I saw my old apartment. Oh, sorry.
Oh my God.
Sorry, my brain's going a mile a minute. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like, I guess people are friendlier in Texas.
Yeah, I remember I went to a wedding a couple years ago. One of my best friends from college, and I had to Uber around everywhere.
Right.
And
wait, where was it? You said
this was in Arlington.
Okay, Texas.
Yeah,
okay.
And one of the Uber drivers that came, he was talking to me, and he was like, "Yeah, man, you know, I was in Walmart getting my eyes checked, and then I saw the request and just like walked out." And I was like, "Oh my God!"
Also, yeah, there's so many questions. On
yeah,
that.
There's a lot.
Because why would you have the Uber app open when you're at a doctor's visit?
In the Walmart. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack there, but yeah, I mean, it seems like a cool place, and like when you were living there and designing there, I mean, maybe it's the whole Instagram thing, influencer thing, but you made it seem pretty cool.
Well,
and it's like, and no, I mean, the thing is that I've often thought about later on down the road, I feel like people who think that they're going to have families and they're going to have to move out of the city in order to like go somewhere and settle down. To me, it kind of reassured me that you can be connected and you can also do great work.
Right.
Like wherever you are.
That's true. Yeah, I do. I mean, first of all, I think Texas is a cool place.
Yeah.
It does have a lot of pros. For me, I just got a little tired of it, and I just wanted the strong design community up here in New York. But
yeah.
You know, it's like wherever you are, you just have to embrace where you are in life. You can't sit around and like be sad that you're in the place that you know you maybe isn't the best place. It's like, hey, just make the best of what you have.
Right. But what if we got a bunch of designers to all move to the same town?
Wouldn't that be cool? I've thought about that.
And just like
I've thought about that.
We could just like invade and redesign.
Well, so my family has a farm out in Kentucky,
right,
middle of nowhere, Kentucky. I've always thought about like, what if I moved out there and like built a design studio?
Yeah.
And had a bunch of designers come, and we, it'd just be us. There's like nothing else around.
Yeah.
Didn't someone do that? Like, didn't an architect, Frank Lloyd Wright, do that?
Did he?
I think he might have. There was like a Frank Lloyd Wright school, or maybe it was a different architect, where he like started his own kind of commune, essentially.
Let's see.
Maybe it wasn't Frank Lloyd Wright. I can't remember. It was an architect that had started his own kind of school / dorm / work thing. It was interesting. I think it might have been on a 99% Invisible podcast. I can't remember.
Huh. We'll have to. Yeah, I don't know.
We can.
I want to find out about his.
I'll link to it or
his
something.
cult. I want to find out about the Lloyd Wrights.
Yeah, it did definitely sound cultish. I'm not exactly sure if it's Frank Lloyd Wright, so don't quote me on that. We'll link to it or find it or something.
Yeah.
But yeah. Buy a pin, guys.
Oh, buy a pin.
Yeah, we still have pins.
We've got pins.
If you want to support the podcast, buy a pin.
It's actually the best way to use it as a bottle opener to take it out of the sleeve and just pierce.
Pierce the top of the
top
back,
of it,
the back of the pin,
and then you just. No, actually, you have to create 2 holes in order for there to be a circulation of air.
That's true.
But you'll figure it out.
Hey, design news. Boop, 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 boop. I thought this was a good worthy design news shout out.
Goodworthy.
Yeah, Goodworthy.
It's on Nick's Goodworthy list.
I have a Goodworthy list and I have a Badworthy list.
I hope I'm on the Goodworthy one.
The industrial design studio Frog designed a conceptual wireless earbud project, which I thought was really interesting. It is called the Unum, UNUM, I believe.
Yeah.
I know Jung-Soo Park, designer at Frog, had that up.
Adam Wrigley,
Francois Nugent,
and KB
Lee.
KB Lee.
We're sorry if we butchered
we're
names.
botching. It's inevitable.
But the idea behind the project was, we all have these AirPods in or wireless earbuds, and they kind of, they fit in your ear and they block off the exterior sound.
Yeah.
Which, is good in some circumstances, but not all circumstances, and it kind of like shuts you off from the world. So their idea behind this one was, what if the sound is like, I believe it's like induction.
Yeah.
Into your mind. And it looks like a hoop, like a circle.
I thought it was that there were a bunch of speakers just like facing towards your ear, like
it might be
tiny
that.
speakers.
It might be that too. I'm not quite sure.
Oh my gosh.
We're
so good. We're so good at design news. We understand things thoroughly before we bring them to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. They so in the end, the team at Frog came up with the design you see pictured above. They created a ring that hangs around your ear with speakers for the sound built in. So yeah, I think it still has speakers. It's not like one of those bone.
It's not bone induction. Well,
I don't think it's bone induction.
I will say this: it is a conceptual product or project, so it's not a real product.
There's not a word. There's not bone. Bone does not feature in this article.
James,
I've got a bone to pick about your whole bone theory.
But I don't know. I thought it was kind of interesting.
Yeah,
it's a really cool form factor. It has this kind of elastic strap that holds onto your ear.
Yeah,
and it's quite beautiful, to be honest.
It's pretty sweet. I would like to try one on. I'm very intrigued by the whole fit.
I think you would turn some heads if you wore this around.
It is very, yeah.
But I also think that AirPods are pretty, they stand out quite.
Well, yeah, the joke is just like Q-tips coming out of your ears. But yeah, I think it's a really fascinating product. And did you mention that they had some downtime and that's why they pursued this project?
Yeah, I believe that's the case.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's really cool that, a studio would take an initiative like that to just like, I mean, I feel like that it's a great moment to kind of flex your creative
skills,
muscles. And
a lot of times too, these large studios are working on projects that, sometimes they can't even show,
right,
can't even talk about. So it's fun. It's fun for us to see something that's like a passion project from some larger studio.
Yeah, it's really sweet. So maybe we'll have to get one of those guys on the pod someday.
Yeah, that'd be good.
But yeah, actually, somebody recommended this on the Discord. I forget who.
Yeah, probably.
Who put it in there?
Yeah, if you guys want to join the Discord.
Join the Discord.
Check it out. Also, if you aren't familiar with the Discord, maybe this is your first time hearing it, it's just a chat room. And don't be scared, Mom. There's not any bad people on the chat room.
Yeah.
So we keep it civil, and we talk about design. It's like a big old a family of designers. So
yeah, Brian Donlin.
Oh, shout out to Brian. Thank you for
sharing, pointing us to this article. But yeah,
we got also some micro details.
We got
James.
some micro details.
What's our micro details segment?
Micro details.
That's pretty good. Ugh. Maybe I don't know. Maybe not.
It's frightening.
Maybe it should be like whispering micro details.
Everything is creepy.
Sorry, guys.
So this week, what we wanted to talk about on micro details is sink marks.
Sink marks. My kitchen sink's really messy, James.
And so you clean it and thus create marks all over
it. Just marks all over my kitchen sink.
Yeah. Well, that's not what I'm talking about,
okay.
Nicholas.
Okay, tell me what you're talking about, James.
What I'm talking about is this thing that happens in, especially, I don't know if it happens in other plastics molding. It must. But especially in injection molding, sink marks are when you have a rib or a boss underneath the surface, and because I think it's because the surface is cooling faster than the rib, it creates a sink at that point. And so I have right now I have up a product that I actually have, which is this bag clip.
Bag clips, yeah.
And you can see on the surface, you can see these little dimples.
It's really subtle. Like it's, when you hold a plastic product, you're probably not going to notice it, but it depends on how, I guess, care a designer or the manufacturer went into it.
Right.
Because I know that if you leave the product in the injection molding machine for a certain amount of time, you can get rid of sink marks or at least diminish them a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about...
You kind of see it in the highlight, too. Like, you hold it in the light, and you can kind of see that dip where the plastic was too thick.
It's all about the cooling of the part.
Yeah.
But that when designers are making these things, that they're intending for that surface to be
perfectly flat. Yeah, we want that thing to be, so clean.
And so, from what I recall, some of the ways that you can avoid sink marks is if you do have any sort of ribs or bosses, the thickness of the walls of those things should be equal to or less than the thickness of the surface that they're connected to.
Some of this is even getting into some more like engineering kind of details. I know like there's like a certain formula too for thickness of the ribs so that they don't get too thick and cause those sinks. But I don't know.
I mean, it's one of those things though that, in some of the jobs that I've worked at, it's like the products are simple enough that they give them to designers to make from start to finish.
Right.
So a lot of the stuff that I worked on at Lifetime Brands, I know of other places that do this, is like they entrust designers with everything start to finish.
That happened to me, and I put so many sink marks in my product, James. Let me tell you.
So I think it's important for designers to at least be aware of like this. I remember when I was at Quirky, like it was the first time I'd ever heard of sink marks. And it was this designer, Adam Pascoe, and we were looking at, it was the original stapler that Poppin, that company, had come out with.
Okay.
And their whole aesthetic is like super clean. And I think that they've fixed all of these.
Right.
But the top surface of the stapler was just like it was a wave pool.
Oh,
it
no.
And it was that it was intended to just be
Super
sleek
flat. Yeah,
and clean.
Yeah.
And it's just something where
I think my
we're gonna show and tell right now.
Oh yeah, this has some sync marks on it. So this was a lure stick, a training device I did at PetMate.
Yeah.
And again, the scenario that you pointed out, James, sometimes people entrust designers to just design the whole thing. No engineers were involved. And yeah, there's definitely some sync marks in there.
Yeah.
You probably can't see it on the video.
I mean, you mean like around these?
Oh yeah, you can
around
see
the rim. It's almost as if like the edge of the product has like a dip.
Right, because like I think the edge, I guess, cooled faster, and then the center was too
I'm
thick.
gonna elongate it so that I can bring it closer to the camera. Do you see that, everybody?
Oh dear.
That's how Nick failed. But it's not. It's honestly not that bad.
It still functions
because at least it's not in the center. At least it's around the edge.
It's uniform.
So it almost feels more intentional.
So essentially, it was one giant sync mark, which means that there's no sync mark. If it's all sync marks, there's no sync mark.
It's just a sync hole. But yeah, I mean that's not the most egregious sync that I've ever seen. But it is something to be aware of, and something, these are also things that when you're talking to engineers, I think that you will get some cred.
Yeah, you get that clout
for knowing these things and knowing how to address them potentially, or at least bringing it up and be like, how do we avoid sync marks?
Right.
And then the engineers go, oh, he knows.
He knows.
He knows too much.
He's not just a dumb art kid. Yeah.
Segue. It's a segue.
Listen, I'm not good with the segues. Let's just get into it. I think our topic we wanted to cover this week was having to design for facets or constraints that aren't necessarily tied to the end user. And, the big one is obviously like engineering and feasibility. That's a given. But I think there's a lot of more tangential ones that sometimes come up and are sometimes can be like even more impactful than engineering can be. So I think maybe just to start off, like one of the things is like getting around other designs, whether it's like a patent or like a similar design.
Yeah. Oh man, I would love to get into a patent conversation because I find patents to be, I think originally what patents were attempting to do was obviously to protect somebody's IP, but also to have sort of a database so that people had a jumping off point for new innovation, because they have like essentially a record of what is being done and how they might change or alter that. I find that a lot of times what patents do is make it so that some brands, they have to make a product. They got to make that salad spinner.
Yeah.
Like people are expecting a salad spinner out of that company. However, Xylus has got a patent on their awesome mechanism. Oxo's got a patent on their awesome mechanism. And so all you can do when you're working...
This seems like
when you're working for dirt cheap and you don't have many engineers on staff that are dedicated to every single project.
It's a first-hand experience.
You have to essentially make the worst version of a salad spinner of the mechanisms that are available to you.
Right, because there's only because of the nature of physics, there's only so many answers to the problem.
Yeah.
And everyone has figured out all the good answers, and you're stuck with the one bad answer.
Exactly. And unless you want to get sued, you have to essentially put out something that is worse.
It's kind of it's really unfortunate, right? Like, because it's almost like we're forced. You're forced to do this because of some sort of business plan of like, hey, we don't have any space in this market. We need to have a product here. And even you can't make a better product because you're boxed out with patents. And so you have to make an inferior product that, you were better off just letting the competitors dominate, right? Like from a societal standpoint. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, and I think it's like a very common situation for companies, especially bigger companies that are putting out the updated offerings every year.
Right.
They have to have the full suite of products.
Right.
And it got me very frustrated when I was working on these kind of things, because I felt like I couldn't make the best version of something. I was like boxed out of making the best version of something.
I don't know if there's a solution to that or not. It's just, that's almost one of those things where you have to kind of change it from the top down.
Yeah.
You got to be the CEO saying like, you know what? We're not going to make this product. I know that we're going to take a loss and that, we're not going to make money on it, but it's for the better good. But the problem is that that's a horrible business plan, right? Like, you're going to lose profits.
It does just strike me that it seems like it's working counter to what the whole patent system is all about, which is about innovation and improvement.
Right. I've known about patents for a while, just from my experience with the nightlight and other things, and it's just like patents used to help the inventor. They used to be the thing that an inventor could come up with something in his garage and become a millionaire. And unfortunately now that's not the case. Unfortunately, patents really only help the corporations that have enough money to sue other people, right?
Yeah.
Because an inventor has $0 to sue.
Right.
You can't. And a patent doesn't mean that no one can copy your idea. A patent means that you have the right to sue that person and win.
Yeah.
So anyone can copy your idea. If you have a patent, doesn't matter. People can copy you as much as they want. You can sue them and win.
Yeah.
But who's going to shell out $100,000 for a lawyer?
Yeah.
So that's a whole.
Well, and then there's the whole thing about your patents only are in effect really within the United States.
Right. Oh yeah. Like how are you going to sue someone in China or some other place?
Yeah. But oh gosh, I had another thought, but I'm
on patents.
Yeah, I don't know. The whole system is frustrating to me.
So I've thought a lot about this. People sometimes ask me, Nick, are you going to get a patent on that? And that usually I just kind of tell them what I just told you guys is like it's not really worth your time. I don't want to give that advice because I think you guys should research yourself. In my opinion, I don't get patents because it just doesn't seem that worthwhile to me.
Yeah.
But it's specifically in design. If you're designing if you're a chemical engineer and you're coming up with like a crazy like chemical like solution, like yes, I think that's patentable or whatever. Also, if you work for a company and the company's paying for the patent, like there's many exceptions.
Yeah.
But that's my kind of thing. It's like when I design some like fun little toy or piece of furniture, it's like it's really not about that. What it's more about is getting to the market first. Like if you're the first person to make that one thing, people are going to know you for that, and they're going to buy it from you, and you're going to make the majority of the profit. And you might get ripped off a couple months down the line, and you might lose some profits to that, but you made the biggest chunk.
Right. And what I was going to say is that so the patent system started in 1790. So if you think
in the world or just the US?
This was in the U.S.
I wonder if we were the first people to
I'm not sure.
Patent law.
Let me check.
That's interesting.
But no, started with the Venetian Statute of 1474.
Oh, interesting.
But anyway, what I was gonna say is that I have this feeling like their patents were useful and functional back when product development and creating new things was a long process.
Yeah.
Like, and because patents also have the 20-year limit. Is that how long it is?
I'm not exactly sure the yearly limit on it.
I think it's 20 years.
I think there's like a distinction to be made here specifically.
Yeah, 20 years.
Specifically in the terms of like industrial design versus just patents in general, is because a lot of patents are utility patents, which means it's a functional thing.
Right.
Like, so the chemical engineer comes up with a new formula, or like we come up with a new mechanism for some sort of, device. Whereas design patent is purely form.
Right.
And those are two separate things, and they're two patentable things.
Yeah.
Like the Coca-Cola bottle, I believe, has a design patent.
Yeah.
No functionality in that. It's a simple glass bottle.
Right.
But you can't copy that exact design, that exact form.
Well, I don't know, because when did they patent that? I feel like
we need to get some professionals in here. I don't know.
It's been 20 years. Yeah, so it says that it's 20 years, but I guess periodic fees are required to maintain. But yeah, I just feel like 20 years back in the day when you were developing a new invention, a new product, like waiting for 20 years to come up so that you can use that same technology probably didn't feel like such a long time. But now with how rapidly things are created, it's like an eternity.
Right.
You know?
Also, another part of this equation that I think is kind of another sticky situation is, we're kind of talking. So if we step away from the functionality aspect of a patent, or functionality aspect of just owning some sort of like device, and get into the form aspect of like, have you ever been designing a product and the form comes up to look something similar to another form, and you have to be able to like get around that in some way? And it's not necessarily a legal thing in that case, right? Like, maybe you design a chair and that chair looks similar to another chair.
Yeah.
It's not like if you made that chair, the company would come after you and sue you, because it's kind of different. It's just similar.
Yeah.
But it's almost like a reputation type of thing.
Right. Yeah. No, and I feel like all you need is reputation and shame now. Like public media shame.
Exactly.
You don't need patents anymore. Right. All you need is just shaming.
Like, does it really matter? Like, if some big company knocked off some small designer, it would, you can see the comment section already, like on the Instagram, just like shaming them.
Oh, if you want to have a really good time, go on to the Greyhound Bus Instagram and just look at those comments. I feel so bad for whoever has to run their social media, because they are really trying to put forth like a good effort, and it's just a cesspool.
Right.
But anyway, that's tangential.
Yeah, I don't think it's just like bottom of the line. You're going to have a bad experience at Greyhound. You got to go into accepting that fact, right? Like, that's just how it's going to be.
It's awful. But I don't know. It almost feels to me like a design patent. If you have like a really specific looking item, like, is it almost more valuable than a utility patent?
I think it depends.
If your brand is based on a very specific form language.
Like the Coca-Cola bottle.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. It's like...
Because I never would have thought that. If you had told me that there's utility patents and design patents, which one's more important? Like, I'd be like, oh, utility patent, obviously.
Right.
But I don't know. Like, a design patent is almost like you're not only copying the function, you are literally copying everything.
So, I mean, there's a difference, right? Like, if you made, I don't know, say a doorstop that was the shape of a Coca-Cola bottle, it's not the same function, but you would still get sued because it's the same form.
Right.
So there's the difference. But, I think it's interesting, because when I think about specifically a lot of my projects, a lot of times I'm combining a function with a form.
Yeah.
And some people can... tie one of those together with something else. So my one example is, I think we might have talked about it way back when on the podcast, but my birdhouse concept where
Oh, yeah.
it sticks onto telephone poles, right?
Yeah.
And there was another designer who had designed a birdhouse that was a roof tile. And they both had kind of a similar form and also had that kind of gorilla type of function.
Yeah.
And so people started like saying, Nick, you just copied this person. It's not an exact copy, right? It's like a similar idea.
Right. It is literally just like a distilled birdhouse.
Yeah.
Modern distilled birdhouse that is in an unexpected place.
Right. And so the thing is like it was a problem because they're both in these unexpected places, as opposed to if, let's say, they were just a birdhouse, like just a simple square with the triangle roof on top.
Yeah.
And I just made a simple square with the triangle roof. No one would blink an eye. No one would be like, you copied the classic birdhouse because it's like you're not creating something new.
Yeah. I mean, that is kind of the problem that I see that you will come up against with minimal design.
Right.
Is like, of course, it's going to, I don't know, if you distill a birdhouse down to its basic elements and take away all decoration, like there's only really a couple forms that it's going to take to register as a birdhouse. And so like, yeah, it is like this weird thing where if you were to design something with a bit more like, I don't know, a different kind of character, like more character infused, you're less likely to have copied somebody else. But I don't know. It's also just like there's simultaneous invention, which is like something that
happens all the
time.
And yeah, it's I wish people knew about this more because a lot of times it happens and then people get upset about it.
Yeah.
It actually just happened to me just recently. Like
really?
Just the other day. Yeah.
Really?
I haven't told you about it. I'll tell you off the pod. But yeah, it was like I had this concept and I showed it to the client and they were like, hey, we love your concept, except it looks exactly like this other item.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
How am I? Now I have to, the options are like, well, I can either completely change the concept or I can change it just enough so that it doesn't look like this other product. But again, it's like when you go back to the drawing board, it's like, well, I mean, if it's already out there and it looks exactly like my concept, like changing it slightly, like that's not gonna give you much. I don't know. It's like people are gonna see like, oh, well, that kind of looks like this thing, and you're not gonna get that reputation. Or you might even get, oh, you think you just changed it slightly, like
yeah.
You might even lose some reputation on that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tricky situation, but it is a situation that a lot of, I would say, especially young designers starting out, often deal with is being given projects where they're designing around things, it's like, especially if you're working for a bigger company, I feel like that is, because if you're working at a design firm, I feel like there's so much emphasis on like, know the market, like provide us with something new and novel. And so like you're kind of like set up for success to do something new and interesting.
Right, because they're reaching out to someone specifically.
But if you're working at something that's more corporate,
right,
like you're going to have to design like the next line of things, and there's these products that you have to do, and this is this new innovative thing that this other company is doing that's very successful. Like, how can we try to replicate that over here? Yeah. And that's where you get into this like really difficult situation.
Also, I know it happens a good bit online with Amazon. There's kind of the Amazon war of like, hey, this is the top selling item on Amazon. Right. And here's what it does. Yeah. Now, can you make an item that does all of this stuff and does it better, or like adds this extra little bit? Yeah. And it's like you're trying to make something different, not because you think it's a good product to go out in the world and be useful to whoever buys it. You're making it purely just to beat out the other product.
Right.
And I don't have a solution to that. I think it's just, I mean, I guess the solution for those who might be in a scenario like that is like, you know, maybe there is a way. That's how I always look at it. It's like, you know, maybe I could create a better product than any of the products that are out there. Like maybe you could create the salad spinner that hasn't been thought of yet, that uses like anti-gravity or dark energy or something. And like, you know, like maybe you could be the one that can, because there are those people. Like there's the person that made the car, you know, there's the person that made the phone. Like there is the person that redefined the entire industry.
Right. And that's the kind of delusional thinking that you need as a young designer in order to survive the slog of everyday living.
I think a little delusion's good in your life.
Yes. I think the best designers and inventors are literally delusional. Like they have to be.
I mean, it's true. I mean, the stuff we come up with, James, is kind of crazy at times. Like, you know,
what are we doing?
Yeah, exactly.
What the heck are we doing here? But yeah, so young designers, beware. Be warned.
Be warned that sometimes you aren't designing for the user.
Yeah. Sync marks and
lawyers, I guess.
And lawyers.
Patents. Let's get to some questions, yeah?
Let's get to some questions.
Hey.
Yeah?
Guess what? We had a voicemail come in.
A voicemail?
Yeah. If you want to send in a voicemail to our Google voicemail, you can send it in to 1-646-494-4011. Don't worry, we won't answer. You can just leave a voicemail. You can leave as many as you want. If you mess up, hang up.
Wait, we're not supposed to answer?
No. Have you been answering? No, James has not been. He's joking. We won't answer. Don't worry.
Okay.
All right. This one comes from David. Hang on. Let me just get it.
Put it up there.
Hey, Nick and James. This is David from Columbus, Ohio. I'm a design student. I just finished up an internship with the Universal Design Project, and I couldn't help but, I learned a lot about universal design through it, and I couldn't help but feel like this should be more essential to how we design things and, talked about more so of, good design is universal design, I feel like. That was kind of their philosophy, and I kind of agreed. And, yeah, so just thoughts on why people don't talk about universal design more and, why it's not a bigger deal. I don't know. I think it's cool. It should be a thing. That's all. Thanks for the great podcast, and, yeah, you guys are really cool.
Thanks for sending it in, David.
Thank you, David.
I actually had to look this up. Universal Design Project. I wasn't familiar. Universal design just seems like a very broad term, so I had to kind of get the definition of that as well.
Right.
But yeah, you said you had seen this before?
Okay, so from what I recall, and I don't know if this is the same people, but I had someone come to school when I was in design, when I was in Virginia Tech industrial design program, that taught us about universal design. And I think he was one of the people who kind of created the constitution of universal design. And from what I remember of universal design, I mean, on the project's website, they say the mission is to help make communities more welcoming to people affected by disability through the use of universal design. The potential to improve lives of individuals and families with disabilities is what motivates us. That said, it's important to recognize that universal design is beneficial for everyone. So there was a lot of case studies around, you think of OXO.
Right.
OXO was developed because there was a specific user that had arthritis. And so how can we design a better peeler for them? And then, look at that. It's a better peeler for everybody.
Right.
And
yeah, I think that was the distinction, right? Because, you think about maybe accessible design or designing for people with disabilities, you're thinking about kind of the end scenarios. It's you're building a house and it's we have stairs on our front porch. Well, if we want people to come in to have wheelchairs, maybe we have to build a ramp in the back.
Right.
That's not universal design.
No.
The universal design would be, hey, there's no stairs, there's only ramps.
Yeah.
Because everyone can access ramps. Is that correct?
I think, yes. I think that is part of it. It is very much about I think Joey Zeldon, when he came on the podcast, talked about, like, I forget the term he used, but for like a specific type of user that they were focused in on. And so, like, when I was in school and we got this universal design project, we were given people with disabilities to design for, and it was designing a cell phone, a smartphone for people with these disabilities. And so my group, we ended up getting the persona of a guy that had one arm.
Okay.
And so how do you use a smartphone with one arm? And of course, like, once you figure out how to like design a product for someone with that like scenario in mind, then that becomes applicable to all people using
their smartphones while they're driving. Exactly.
Yeah. Come on, man. I mean, you can do it. But I think other groups, like, they got somebody with dementia, you know, so like, I think that was a lot more about the interface.
Right.
But yeah, it's like the whole thing is designing for that extreme user. And then how does that then benefit the broader market?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's great. I mean, obviously, if you can benefit as many people as possible, that should be the goal. I do think, like, maybe one of the questions that David was saying was like, why isn't this implemented more? Yeah. I think maybe one facet of that is, if you are designing for the extreme user, sometimes, you know, that like 5th percentile of people is not, like, the solution for them is not going to benefit the other people, and it might even be a detriment for someone else. Yeah. You know, I don't know how you said one of your teams designed a phone for someone with dementia, right? Yeah. Like, I don't know if that necessarily extrapolates to everyone else. Right. Maybe there's facets of it, but I think maybe that's where, you know, sometimes it just needs to be a selective thing. Right.
But I think that, just like with kind of the form families, it could be a part of the creative process of, okay, if I funnel this idea, this product that I'm working for, through this filter,
yes,
how might that look different? How might that function differently? Right. So, like, yeah, if I'm working on a salad spinner and it's for somebody with one arm, like, what does that look like? Right. And so I think it can be a very useful exercise for doing something very innovative. And you can do things like, you know, with those projects in mind, you can do something like live an entire day with one arm. Or I know that my friend Oscar in school, like, lived an entire day as a blind person for his thesis.
That's pretty crazy.
You know, and it's like, okay, maybe you're not going to understand how somebody who has to live every day of their life that way is going to be. But, like, by doing that exercise, you can sort of find things that are just, like, immediately very difficult. And
I like that idea a lot. Just like putting yourself in the other person's shoes. Yeah. No, that was good. That was a good question, David. Hopefully that was somewhat helpful. But yeah, guys, everyone that's listening, check out Universal Design Project. Yeah. I think they're doing some great stuff. Another question. If you guys want to send a question in, send it to minordetailspodcast@gmail.com. This one actually came from the Discord, but I think it was a good question, and it actually sparked quite a bit of conversation. Yeah. This one comes from Lofted Surface, and they say, what do you guys think about curating your portfolio sketches? Do you start sketching thinking on how it will be displayed in your portfolio, or do you just let the thing flow and edit them later? And if you're heavy on the editing, what's the limit? Redoing them, or just redoing them on digital just for the eye-catching sake, or are you staying true to the design process? Are you adjusting the hierarchy, contrast, or balance? Several questions there. I think maybe what Lofted Surface is getting at is, like, a lot of times when we're sketching for projects, we're not necessarily making the most beautiful sketch, right? Yeah. But when you look in portfolios, you do see those beautiful sketches. And so where is that disconnect or connection happening? Yeah. And I also think, you know, I remember reading through the Discord, people were talking a little bit about, have you ever done a project where you actually finished the project and then decided to go back and redo the sketches just for your portfolio?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've done it.
I've done it as well.
Yeah. How do you feel about it? Is it an ethical gray area?
I think when you're a student getting started out, you need to do everything you can to get a job. I think that's just how it is. Like,
Yeah.
I think that, yes, you might have redone the sketches, and that's not necessarily, the process you took. But I think, I think the value of having a beautiful sketch in a portfolio and catching that employer's eye outweighs that slight moral obligation to show the true design process. I think that maybe later on in your career it doesn't matter as much, but design's such a competitive field that you really do have to pull out all the stops.
Right.
I mean, if you want to be moral about it and show the true sketches, that's fine. I just think that you are putting yourself at a slight disadvantage.
Yeah. I think that obviously the portfolio process, putting together something, it is a visual storytelling process.
Yeah.
How do you tell the story of how this came to be? And I think that whenever anybody is putting together a presentation for anything, they're putting in slides that don't necessarily represent every part of what happened,
right? But
it's to strengthen the story.
Yes,
it's to strengthen the overall story. And I mean, how many companies do multiple different photo shoots
right.
of the same product, and it is to convey something different based on the time and the place.
Yeah.
And I think that it's totally legit to go back and redo your sketches, because what you're doing is you're saying this is me and this is my best foot forward.
Yeah.
This is what you can expect from me if you ask the most from me, if you
right.
ask for the best.
Because again, if you show your most up-to-date sketching skills, that's what that's what the employer is going to get.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't think, if you feel if you have a job interview tomorrow and you're oh God, I think your sketching is probably good enough, or just good enough for now,
right.
and just go in with that. But if you have some time to work on things and, just one thing a night, if you want to update those sketch pages or whatever, I don't think that that's a bad idea.
How do you show your sketches on your portfolio? I mean, for me, I do include those small doodles. Mm-hmm. I also make sure the background is white, and I usually Photoshop it. So I usually get rid of any paper, and I just rearrange the doodles themselves.
Right.
And then they're small doodles, and then they get bigger as they go down the page or across the page to be more larger concepts. Maybe, I throw in the concepts that I actually presented to my boss or the client of hey, these are the bigger sketches. These are the ones that are more refined. But I have the doodles that are really small. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I organize it. Because then you are actually kind of showing more of the process. It's you're not hiding the scratchy stuff.
No. I think that's totally legit. To be honest, I haven't touched my portfolio in years.
Yeah.
So, that is typically the way that I did it, is I had sort of I would foreground the culmination of all of the sketches, and then kind of background all of the doodles. So yeah,
that's good too.
I think
Behance is a great way to find inspiration for that kind of stuff.
Right.
How do you lay out sketches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just copy someone's layout.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope that answers some of the there was a couple questions in there, but
yeah,
I think that generally helps.
I think that's good. And then
should we do one more question?
I think that's all the time we've got for today.
Okay. The shout out of the week is
isn't that our shout out from last week?
Yeah, James, I'm changing it.
Oh my God. Come on, Nick.
The shout out of the week is CW&T Studio, and their Instagram handle is @CharlieWhiskeyTango. They are a design studio, I believe, based in New York.
Yeah.
Designing kind of experimental products and cool little. They've designed several pens, and I really like their aesthetic. They kind of have this kind of industrial, scientific aesthetic. Their most recent pen is a super flat ballpoint pen.
Yeah.
Essentially, the pen is the thickness of the ballpoint ink barrel, like the plastic barrel.
Right.
And then they surround the barrel with titanium. It's really cool.
It's almost like a carpenter pencil made
Yeah.
a pen.
It's like, it's flat, has that flat kind of profile like a carpenter
Yeah.
pencil. But yeah, they've made several kind of pens. I believe they do Kickstarter projects. I think that's where most of these things get made.
Yeah.
But yeah, check them out. Charlie Whiskey Tango on Instagram, and we'll link to it and everything.
Very cool. All right. Well,
yeah, as always, let's see what we got.
Kiyoshi the Kid.
Intro and outro. Yeah, we got to like and subscribe on YouTube.
Spotify.
And give us that 5-star rating on iTunes.
Absolutely.
We're getting up there in the ranks of the podcast.
Are we?
I think so. I got to check, actually. I don't know. But listen, guys, if you can't buy a pin, just leave a nice little note. Go to the podcast app, 5 stars, be like, hey, I like this podcast, and here's why.
Yeah.
Oh, spread the word. Spread the word with all the design students now that you guys are back in school.
Yeah. Now that you're back in school, you better let those freshmen know what's up.
That's right.
Those second years, first years.
All right. As always, I'm at Nick P. Baker.
I'm at I Draw on Receipts.
Peace out.
Later.